So I've spent a little bit of time now building out some processes, and I've taken on a few new clients managing their ads. It's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. In terms of the type of clients I'm working with at the moment, I've got one client that in the bedding industry or niche, and running ads for them using a mix of Instagram ads and Facebook ads. We're running a mix of dynamic product ads. You've got different audience sets, so you can target, for example, based on their interests. You can segment and target based on their behavior. So for example, if they've been on the website and they've browsed through certain products but they haven't checked out, you can create that as an audience set. And then with a lot of AI settings, you can now test AI creatives. So for example, enhancing text, or you can use variations of text. Not that most people aren't using like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or Insert AI or Gemini or whatever, right? People using all these AI tools to write the copy anyway. And one of the pet peeves that I have at the moment is like seeing the use of no fluff. It's I've even seen like ads where people are using that script used by ChatGPT, and then they're reading it word for word, and they clearly just use AI to write the scripts, and then they're running the ads and using it without having a human look through it and actually consider whether it's good or not. I've been pretty lucky. I've been able to build up a bit of work through reaching out to past, sort of colleagues, and reach within my network in terms of like people that I worked with at some point like 4 or 5 years ago, where I've moved on a few agencies and they're still in business, and then they've sort of reached out and asked what I'm up to, that sort of thing. So that's been like a way I've landed business. But I'm also now looking at like ways to drum up more business in terms of cold outreach. But I don't just want to call anyone, right? So in this space, digital marketing, you can imagine how many people get emails, get phone calls, they get overseas phone calls, people trying to sell them leads, trying to sell them digital marketing. So I kind of want to set myself apart, but also don't want to waste time with wrong people who might be in the early phases of growing their business. That's not to say they won't be somebody that I'll work with in the future, but if I can focus on a prospect list, which gives me the highest chance of having a good conversation with somebody that is a little bit more established. They've got a bit more, for example, they've got maybe a couple of staff they've hired. They might have 1 or 2 bricks and mortar locations running an e-commerce business, or they might just have, for example, a few different locations if they're like a restaurant or something. That generally indicates the size and potentially turnover. Because if you think about each employee, they're going to be, if they're part-time, they might be 30, 40, maybe even 50,000 a year. And if they're full-time, they're probably going to be between 60 and 100,000. Multiply that by 3 employees. That business is probably turning over at least, 400, 500, 600, maybe $1 million a year, right? So that kind of eliminates and gets rid of people who might be running like hobby businesses or side hustles and that sort of thing. So that's probably a good approach, and I'll go down that path. But honestly, I've never done cold calling, or I've never really given it a proper crack. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. If you guys have run or done cold outreach, cold calling, have any tips, would love to hear that. But what's worked for me is like reaching and focusing on warm leads, working and trying to provide value. And one of the things I actually did was I spent 3 or 4 hours doing an audit for a Google Ads and Facebook Ads account free of charge. And that landed me a conversation and further interest into how we could work together. I offered a reduced retainer with KPI. So if I reached a certain return on ad spend, they spent X amount of dollars on ads, and I was able to generate a certain result, then they would increase me to the full retainer. So this reduced risk for them, but also opened the possibility for me to make more money later. So proud to say that's been unlocked. So that's been awesome. And I'm soon going to go through parenthood. So I'm going to be a father. So that's going to be very exciting. But I also need to figure out how to grow my business while also being aware of like what it's going to be like being a new parent and having a newborn, disrupted sleep processes, when I can work, when I can't work, when I can take meetings, when I need, sort of uninterrupted time to work, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think I'll leave the video here, but I'll give you guys a bit more of an insight if you're interested in what it looks like managing the Instagram ads, and if you guys are running your own business